Hello, everyone. We are just waiting a second while people join us, but welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all, or at least your names. Okay, we're going to get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Josie Badger, and for those of you who are new to Trail or have not heard of us, Trail is a disability advocacy program led by and for people with disabilities who are experts in the field. And I want all of our presenters today to introduce themselves. So first, my name is Josie, and I am one of the founders of Trail. I live in Lawrence County, and I'm a person with both a physical disability. I use a wheelchair and a ventilator. I have 24-hour care through nurses, and I also deal with depression and anxiety. So I'm going to move on to Everett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Everett Dibler. I am also a wheelchair. Well, I'm a wheelchair user and have definitely dealt with some depression and anxiety also. And I'm currently living in the Lehigh Valley in the Allentown area.
Thank you, Everett. I guess I didn't really say I have my doctorate in healthcare ethics and I run a business. Everett?
Sure, I guess I could say that too. I am a learning specialist at Lehigh Carmen Community College in disability support services and have a master's degree from George Washington University in special education and human development with a focus on transition services for special education students. So that's a long thing to say, but I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Ev. James.
Hello, thank you all for joining today. My name is James Henderson, born with spina bifida. I'm a disability advocate, part of Trail. I'm also a Middletown Township here in Bucks County, where I reside, Human Relations Commission member. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I'm very grateful to be here today. Did I mention I was born with spina bifida? I think I did, but there you go.
Thanks, James. Melanie.
Good afternoon. My name is Melanie. I reside in Butler County. I was born with a rare complex birth defect that affects almost every body system and have acquired a few more along the way, including an airborne latex allergy. I'm a 2011 graduate from Slippery Rock University, and I am currently heavily involved in disability, ostomy, and child advocacy.
Thank you so much, everyone. And so today we are going to share some fundamentals about what it means to be working with people with disabilities and what that means as a candidate and as you are even reaching out to the disability community. One thing that we have found throughout all of this work with working with candidates over the past 2 years is how few individuals who are in leadership positions have direct contact with people with disabilities to hear all the sides of issues and how they directly affect our lives. I'm going to share my screen. So during this time, we have made efforts to ensure that we are sharing our messages and information with legislators, candidates, to ensure that our voice is heard. So Trail is supported by the Women and Girls Foundation, UPMC, Laurel Medical, and Family Voices at Work. We focus on empowering the disability community to be able to work with people in leadership positions with an emphasis on family and medical leave. And if you want to see more, you can visit the webpage. You all will receive a recording of this, as well as the PowerPoint slides and some of the resources later. So, disability in Pennsylvania. The reason that we called this event Learning About Your Largest Constituency, is that people with disabilities make up the largest minority group in the world, in the state, and in your district. There are 1 million, almost 800,000 Pennsylvanians with disabilities. That's 14% of Pennsylvanians have disabilities. Pennsylvania employment rates is 79% for people without disabilities, but for those with disabilities, it's a little under 40%. And further, 28% of working age Pennsylvanians live in poverty. So these individuals who most of them don't work, but those who do work are still in poverty. Philadelphia County has the largest percentage or number of people with disabilities, while Forest has the largest percentage. 17.7 million Americans with disabilities voted in 2020. Go ahead, Everett.
Yeah, which I think is and in our research of past election involvement and voter turnout for people with disabilities, this was a massive increase for us in getting people out to the polls and having people be involved in that process. And so the other thing that's really, really important on the next slide is that the disability community has a major history of getting laws and really advocating for their rights for the disability community. Some of the things to note on this list that's on the screen is the Social Security Act. Another big one is the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, which is now IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which obviously is a major thing to give people with disabilities accommodations and supports and access really to great education in the state of Pennsylvania and the country in the US. And you can see there's a few other things listed here. Other things of note would be the ADA, which I believe, if I'm doing my math right, just celebrated its 32nd anniversary this summer. And that's a big civil rights law for the disability community that thousands of people with disabilities like me advocated for and have continued to push to see more things done and more things changed to improve access and community involvement for people with disabilities. And so we wanted people to realize that we are a large portion of a voter block, and that we do care about things in our community and try to create change with change makers like yourselves. The last one that I'll mention here, which has really been a game changer for people with disabilities, is that Affordable Care Act that was passed in 2010, which does not allow insurance companies to refuse to cover people with disabilities based on pre-existing conditions. And so these are all great changes and have made great strides, but we aren't done as a community. We want to partner with people like yourselves to make positive changes for our community and empower our community to get jobs and be involved in their community as they see fit. Now I'm going to turn it over to Melanie to talk about some things that are important to our community in terms of language.
Hi all, just a quick basic etiquette on language. Don't use special handicap. We are either a person with a disability or a disabled person, and that does vary from community to community and person to person within that community. Wheelchair users, you've heard Everett and Josie introduce themselves. Living with or survivor of an intellectual disability. And also fancy little words like handy capable or differently abled are very tacky and not super common to use in the disability community, as it seems like a fancy way to avoid saying the word disabled.
So now I am going to share a video that I think explains disability etiquette better than we could. And we are happy to also answer questions about these later.
Josie, make sure you're sharing your sound, okay? Go ahead and stop that and share your sound.
Let me restart the video. My apologies. Every once in a while, you think you have it already.
Yeah, and there's all these people watching, right? So it makes it awkward.
So while I restart this, I think it's super important to realize that the first priority of any of this is to realize that we are people first. And that's what you will find in this video that hopefully has sound. And Everett, let me know if you don't hear it.
I do not, Josie. You want me to try to pull it up on mine? I do not hear it right now. Josie, did you hear me say we can't hear it, or at least I can't hear it?
Okay, we're going to need to skip the video. It is not working here today. So
Do you want me to play it? Because I have it
No,
pulled
I
up
want
here.
you to just talk about it.
Okay, and so in this, let me get my lovely face up here. So in this video, and I encourage you, if we are going to be sending this out to everyone to pull this video up, it actually is what you saw there was a guy by the name of Bob getting on an elevator, surrounded by people with various types of disabilities, and they basically go through things to consider when interacting with people with disabilities. Things like don't touch our durable medical equipment like our wheelchairs and canes unless we tell you that's okay. Don't always assume that someone is in need of support. You can always ask them if they would like support, because maybe when you think someone needs support, they're doing something that helps them to be independent and to do things like opening a door or getting in and out of their vehicle or something like that. It's always okay in my perspective to ask if someone wants support, but if someone says they do not, I would just move on and just allow them to be where they are doing their own thing. The other thing they talk about a lot is you see people that may use service animals, and the prevailing guidance or thing that should be done in most cases is do not touch someone's service animal unless they give you permission to do so, because that animal is working and providing a service for the person who is with that service animal. Other things that are mentioned in this video are when you're working with people, try to get to their level. If you're working with someone that has an interpreter that's with them, sign language interpreter, you definitely do not want to speak to the interpreter. You want to be speaking to the person who has requested a meeting with you. The interpreter is there to support someone, but you do not want to be speaking to the interpreter and almost forgetting that the person is there meeting with you. It is there. It almost feels like they're not a part of it. The last thing is, if someone has, Josie mentioned having 24-hour care, right? Having someone with her that is available to support her. One thing that is really annoying, and I'm sure I can see she's almost laughing, right, is when someone speaks to their support person and not the person who is there to meet with you. This happens a lot at like grocery stores or malls. I go out with people and they literally assume I don't know how to order my own dinner or my own lunch, or that I couldn't possibly be paying for a grill at the Home Depot that my friends have to be. They're just there to lug it out to my car. And so those kind of things are what's in this video. But Bob, the guy on the elevator, learns these things from people with disabilities. But the prevailing thing is treat others the way you want to be treated, and you most likely won't go wrong, quote unquote.
Yeah, and so to add to that, as an individual who works with a lot of legislators, I've seen a lot of maybe not the best interactions, and so a few tips on working with constituents. When you're setting up an event, make sure that they can actually get there. Anyone who wants to attend should be able to get there. But then in meetings, I even though I lead a lot of meetings with legislators and candidates, they tend to always look at the individual without a disability, assuming that that person is the one leading the meeting. Don't ever assume that that's how it is. Sometimes, but always, treat everyone as if they are the ones who are there to meet with you and that you need to listen to. And I think that level of respect is critical. We use the words nothing about us without us. And that means whether it's legislation, policies, anything that affects our lives, we need to be talking about it and at the table. And that is so, so important. So now I'm going to go back to our friend James to talk about some info.
Again, my name is James, and I'm here to present to you info sheets that we trail members have created for all candidates to refer to. Each info sheet is on a topic that is important to the disability community, such as this one on employment for Pennsylvanians with disabilities. The chance to have meaningful, fulfilling work is pivotal for disabled Pennsylvanians, and this info sheet gives insight on the reality of disabled individuals, including those in Pennsylvania. Obtaining meaningful employment. It also covers enduring discrimination in the workplace and talks about how the sub-minimum wage limits disabled individuals. Then you have employment for Pennsylvanians with disabilities policy recommendations, which covers what can be and should be done in order for Pennsylvanians with disabilities to have gainful, meaningful, and fulfilling employment. The next slide displays all of the topics, and you'll see that there are 8 in total. You have employment, which I covered, primary and secondary education, transportation, housing, healthcare, post-secondary education, family medical leave, and that should be it. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, and these info sheets are linked, right, Josie? They're linked,
Yes.
so that if you would like to view them all, they are available there to you. And again, these are from trail members, and we have about, would you say, Josie, over 50 now trail members who have given information for these info sheets. And so it really is a good perspective of kind of where people with disabilities see themselves in these areas and where things can be improved and changed. But obviously, we want to work with people that can help, that are in decision-making roles, to help make improvements and make positive change in these areas. But we realize that everybody's so busy, you can't possibly know all the things, right? And so we thought this would be a good start in terms of giving policy sheets for issues that are important to our community.
So one thing, you all already have access on the original email that we all sent out, that you registered from. There is a link to those info sheets on there directly. So you have access anytime to those as well. But when I follow up with an email with the recording and the PowerPoints, just as Everett said, you can use this, and every one of these is a hyperlink to the actual sheet. And once again, nothing about us without us. And so these are written by people with disabilities for people making decisions that can influence our lives. So before we forget, we want to remind you all that next week, same time on Thursday, is another Lunch and Learn specifically on making sure that your campaign and campaign materials are accessible. I think that we often assume that if there's a ramp, things are accessible. But accessibility goes far beyond ramps and elevators. And so we want to make sure that your material is accessible for everyone so that everyone has the ability to be full citizens and vote. So we wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions or comments. So please, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box or in the Q&A. And one of us would be more than happy to answer them. Any questions?
And Trail would love to stay connected with all of you as time goes on, connecting people that have been through that are a part of Trail to people just to we want to be a resource for all of you around our issues and support the work that everyone is doing to make positive change across the state of Pennsylvania.
As you are meeting other people with disabilities in your district, some general tips based on my experience, not that any of you would do this, but other decision makers have. If it's a person in a wheelchair, don't pat us on the head. You should never ask what's wrong with you, especially the first time you meet us. And those are things that have happened in the Capitol.
Josie, I see some questions popping into
Oh, great.
The Q&A and probably the chat. There's probably both that are coming in here. One is, can you talk a little bit about the problem that you have, the problems that you may have reaching and working with your representatives?
One barrier is communication. For a lot of people with disabilities, email is often one of the most accessible ways. However, the problem is that sometimes candidates and legislators do not check their email, and sometimes they require you to go through a form. Many of those forms are not accessible. Further, a lot of their offices are not accessible, and so those limit our ability to talk to legislators. And if any of the other panelists have other thoughts there, please jump in. I'm jumping.
And I see
masking.
that, yeah, about masking and people with disabilities. You want to go ahead and answer that, Josie? And I see that, Nyota, if you have questions going into the Q&A, one of our team members is actually also answering those personally in the chat.
Can you discuss the mask one, Everett?
Let me actually. I'm looking at both things here, so let me make sure that that I got this. I think, okay, so this is Wow. I mean, that's a great question. So the question basically says, people not wearing masks could impact people with disability, not allowing them to engage in society. I think, and maybe, I mean, Josie, I will answer this, but then maybe you can kind of speak to your situation and how someone not wearing a mask may directly impact someone in your situation. Like,
Sure.
I think that kind of makes sense. And so I think a lot of the issue around masking and the pandemic, when it definitely when we first started, and the masks were, becoming a thing and have maintained being a thing. And I know other people in the disability community that still really haven't left their homes because of the fear of people not wearing masks and worried about spread and contracting COVID. I think it's more about people with disabilities, maybe immunocompromised and have conditions that would be exacerbated by catching something such as COVID, right? And I realize that illness has been around for forever, right? But I think people were really worried about, hey, like, if people don't wear masks, like, I can't, I feel like I'm unable to safely leave my home and be in society. And I think that was a big thing for the disability community, is like, if people would just wear masks, it might make it safe enough for me to go out with my family and leave to go to my doctor's appointments and to do all those things. And so I think that was a big thing. And I know, Josie, for people that have conditions similar to yours, that kind of a thing is a big deal sometimes because of how they're immunocompromised, possibly.
So I'm not going to go into detail about, specifics. Just ask the person. Ask whether they would like to have you or other staff mask or not, because Everett's right. For some folks, they need to be able to see your lips. So sometimes, whether it's not wearing a mask at all or using a face mask that has a clear piece on the front, which you can order, those are better for some. For others, masking is the safest route for them. So thank you, Everett, so much for taking that question. We had a very good question in the Q&A, and I wanted to reshare our slide about language. So once again, it makes our skin crawl when people say handicapped or special, confined to a wheelchair or wheelchair bound, suffering from, or the R word, retarded, which I don't even let spoken in my home.
Yeah, I can't believe you just said that out loud.
I know.
I can't believe you just said that. Yeah, because we're not sick or ill. I'm not suffering from anything, right? Like, I don't see it that way. I'm a person who is a homeowner. I work full time. I have a almost 3-year-old daughter and a wife, right? Like, that's like, I'm living life. There's nothing to be suffering from.
And so I know Everett has to take off. But thank you so very much.
Yes. I'll see you. Bye-bye.
But just to wrap things up, some of us, and I would say everyone on this call from Trail, is disabled and proud. We are fine with who we are. And for some of us, including myself, we wouldn't give up our disabilities because they're part of who we are. If you are talking to someone in a wheelchair, and I know this will be covered more next week, you will want to ideally be able to sit near them and be at eye level. But if it's awkward, don't do it. The last thing we want is to have things more awkward than they already are. And so avoid the awkward and make things just as easy and comfortable as possible. And I'm just doing one more look through. Any more questions? But we really appreciate all of you being a part. So as we look at what does 2023 look like, I think that a lot of us are concerned about changes in Medicare and Medicaid. I think that a lot of us are wanting to continue to improve the opportunities for us to work and not lose our benefits. We need to make sure that voting is accessible to all of us, and that includes mail-in ballots for a lot of people. And I think that there is a concern about recession and how that's going to impact us and our ability to work. So I think there's a lot of issues that we need to be thinking about as we move into this upcoming year. And I would really encourage you to take a look at those sheets because they really outline a lot of that. Just another check. So what I will do is if any other questions come in, I will send a reply to those individuals because I know a lot of you need to take off. And so I'm very, very thankful that you all joined today. And next week, you will learn a whole lot more about the details of ensuring that what you do is accessible. So thank you all. If you want to stay, I will try to address additional questions. But I understand a lot of you need to take off. So thank you and goodbye to those of you who need to jump off. I'll give you guys a moment. Okay, so briefly, I'm going to go through the questions that I did not get a chance to answer.
Josie, can you hear me?
I can. Hi,
Okay,
Naomi.
first, I want to say I'm sorry it took me a while to jump on. I had some conflicting things. And hello, everyone, and thank you for participating. I've been looking through the stack of questions and they've been really informative. I've tried to answer as many as I can, but as we discussed, if there are any other questions specific to something that I can answer, just forward them to me. Josie, if you would please drop my email because I have to run off to another meeting.
Okay.
But I did answer as many as I could. There are some really deep questions in here that I really would love to talk to all of you all more about. Thank you so much for dedicating this time to talk to us and learn about what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Nyota. And I know some of you have
Awesome.
direct connection with the disability community. Share that if the person feels comfortable with you sharing that, let us know because we will trust individuals who have personal experience much faster than someone that we feel doesn't know people with disabilities. If you don't know people with disabilities, reach out to us. We are here as a support to you all because you supporting us will ultimately help the entire disability community. I'm just checking the Q&A one more time. If you could state the top 2 things a legislator could do to support you and Trail, what are they? Okay. So probably top 2 things is listening to us. So making sure that if there's a decision that is about people with disabilities or even not necessarily directly, but you know that it would affect us, bring disability advocates to the table or have your policy director reach out to us and find out what needs to happen to ensure that we are supported because we are citizens of this country and yet there are still so many barriers to employment, to home ownership, to being a parent. And right now, for a lot of us, marriage is not possible because of benefit cliffs. And so these are issues that we would say most citizens don't deal with. However, we do. And we still are the largest constituency group, but we're not heard because we're not at the table. And then what is a frustrating thing that I've experienced? Being ignored. You know, assuming someone else that is able-bodied or looks non-disabled is the an expert instead of me. I think things are getting a lot better, but we still have a far way to go. Okay, I do not see any more questions. So thank you all so very much for joining. I hope to see you next week. And hopefully less technical issues. So thank you all. Bye.